The storm outside the airport roared against the giant glass walls, but nothing was louder than the silence inside Ethan Hale's chest as he sat alone in the very important person lounge of Terminal 3, staring at the boarding pass he didn't want to use. A powerful, wealthy CEO whose face often appeared on magazine covers. Ethan looked like a man who had everything, except the one thing he could never buy back. He was on his way to a funeral, his own mother's, after years of being too busy, too distracted, too late. As the thunder cracked above the runway, he closed his eyes, feeling the crushing weight of regret settle like another storm inside him. That was when a soft voice interrupted everything, a voice so gentle yet so trembling that it sliced right through his loneliness. A tiny boy stood in front of him, clutching the hand of his exhausted, pale-faced mother. The child's clothes were worn, the laces of his shoes barely tied, and his eyes already filled with tears too big for his small face. And then came the sentence Ethan would never forget for the rest of his life. "My daddy is in heaven. Can you help us get home? If you believe kindness still exists in this world, if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more hearts." Ethan blinked, unsure whether he had heard correctly. The boy stood there, trembling from the cold and fear, his tiny fingers still clutched around his mother's lifeless hand. His mother gave a faint, apologetic smile, clearly embarrassed, clearly desperate, yet too fragile to explain what had pushed her son to approach a stranger. Ethan looked around, expecting someone else the boy might be talking to, but the child's round eyes stayed locked on him, as if something about him felt safe, familiar, or maybe just silently willing. Something deep in Ethan's chest shifted, and for the first time in months, he looked away from his own pain long. Enough to see someone else's. The airport was overflowing due to the storm. Flights were delayed, gates were moved, and confusion spread like a fog across the terminals. Ethan noticed that the boy and his mother had no luggage except for a small, worn backpack and a plastic bag filled with what looked like documents. Their clothes were soaked from the earlier rain outside. The mother's eyes were red, not from crying but from exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying too many burdens for too long. She had the look of someone who had held herself together for her child until her strength finally cracked. Ethan felt something ache inside him, something he thought had died years ago, empathy. When his father had left and his mother worked double shifts to raise him alone, he had been that child once. Scared, hopeful, and searching for someone to help. Yet he had grown up to build walls so tall no one could climb them, not even himself. But this boy, this small trembling voice, had somehow reached a part of Ethan he had buried away. The mother finally spoke, her voice whisper-soft but weighted with embarrassment. She explained that they were trying to get back home to a small town after attending the funeral of her husband, the boy's father, who had passed unexpectedly. She had saved just enough for the tickets, but a sudden rebooking fee due to the storm had left them stranded. They tried to sleep in the public seating area until security asked them to move. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for help. She just apologized and tried to pull her son away, as if she didn't believe they deserved kindness. But the boy tugged her hand stubbornly, refusing to leave, and stared at Ethan with those wide eyes as if he sensed something invisible, perhaps a loneliness that matched his own. And Ethan, who had spent years ignoring his own wounds, felt something inside him break open. The storm outside continued to batter the windows as Ethan stood and approached them. He realized he was seeing himself in that little boy, abandoned by fate, lost in a world that never slowed down for anyone's grief. The mother tried to wave off his concern, insisting they would figure something out. But Ethan saw the truth. She had no plan, no money left, and no energy to fight anymore. He guided them gently toward the service counter. As he stood beside them, he noticed how the boy stayed close to him, almost as if sensing that this tall, stern-looking man was the first bit of safety they'd had in days. The airline staff informed them that due to the storm, flights were limited, and the next available seats were expensive. The mother's face fell instantly, and the boy began fiddling with the zipper of his bag nervously. Ethan didn't hesitate. For once, he didn't think about business, money, image, or responsibility. He simply thought about what his mother would have wanted him to do, the mother he was on his way to bury. He pulled out his black CEO card and booked them not only on the next flight, but upgraded them to make sure the boy could rest. The mother stared at him, speechless, tears forming instantly. She whispered that she didn't know how to thank him, but Ethan only nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He walked him to a quiet corner where they could sit. The boy climbed up on the chair and hugged the backpack that clearly held all the memories of his father. He told Ethan, in broken little sentences, that his daddy used to say, kindness is like a small light in dark places. He said he thought Ethan looked like someone who needed a light too. The words hit Ethan harder than any storm outside. For the first time in years he felt seen, not by investors, not by cameras, but by a child whose honesty had no filter. As the hours passed and the storm delayed the flights further, Ethan sat with them. They talked about simple things, the boy's favorite superhero, how his mother used to bake with his father, and the boy's dreams of becoming a pilot someday so he could help people reach home safely. With every moment, Ethan felt his chest loosen, the numbness inside him melting away as if this small family carried the warmth he had been missing for years. The boy eventually fell asleep, his tiny head resting on Ethan's arm. The mother watched with soft eyes, whispering that she hadn't seen her son sleep peacefully since his father passed. She admitted that she felt like she was failing at everything, at motherhood, at life, at surviving. Ethan shook his head and told her quietly that she was doing better than she knew. The words weren't just for her, they were for himself too. As dawn approached and the storm slowly calmed, the flight announcement finally echoed through the terminal. The mother gently tried to carry the sleeping boy, but Ethan helped, lifting the child with surprising tenderness. When they reached the boarding gate, the boy woke up, blinked sleepily, and wrapped his small arms around Ethan's neck in a hug so pure it nearly shattered Ethan's carefully built emotional armor. The boy whispered, "Thank you for helping us get home. Daddy would have liked you." Ethan swallowed hard, unable to speak as emotion clawed at his throat. The mother hugged him too, thanking him with gratitude so genuine it made him feel unworthy. Before stepping onto the plane, she handed him a small photograph, a picture of her late husband holding their newborn son. She told Ethan, "People like you're the reason people like us keep believing in the world." And then they were gone, walking toward the plane, the boy turning back every few steps to wave until Ethan was out of sight. As the plane took off, Ethan remained standing near the window, watching with a strange ache in his chest. He realized something unexpected, helping that family had helped him too. Their grief had shown him his own, their hope had reminded him of what he had lost, and their courage had inspired him to change. When Ethan finally boarded his own plane to attend his mother's funeral, he brought with him the photograph the woman had given him. He held it tightly, realizing how fragile life was and how deeply strangers could touch your heart if you let them in. He promised himself he would live differently from now on, not just as a CEO, but as a human being who remembered what compassion felt like. Months later, Ethan created a foundation in honor of both his mother and the boy's father, one that funded emergency travel for struggling families trying to get home during times of crisis. He never told anyone why he started it. Some things are too sacred to explain. But every year, on the anniversary of the stormy night he met them, he received a letter. A child's handwriting. Simple words. Always the same, "Thank you for helping us get home." If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the power of kindness, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support keeps these emotional stories alive.